it's the Friendly Fire Show, episode 156 for the midpoint of July 2020. I'm one of your hosts, Steve from Stevivor.
I'm the other host, Ben from Stevivor.
You are the second half of the hosts.
Yeah, well, I've been promoted because we never have any other guests, so it's just us.
How is that a promotion?
I'm not sure. I was much lower down the rank. Back when we used to have Tana on every week, that was a long time ago.
Well, do you want to be the special guest? It'll just be like the Friendly Fire Show with me and special guest Ben Salter.
Well, it kind of is. You did a one-off episode between this and our last one, I believe. So,
Did you listen? Oh, you believe. So you didn't listen, is what you're saying.
No, I didn't listen.
Oh, well, we'll talk about that later anyway, so it's fine. Like, you're absolved, but whatever. COVID update, obviously. The elephant in the room is that you're doing pretty well, and you, air quotes, you, South Australia, and me, air quotes, Victoria, not doing as well.
What is going on over there?
I don't know. Well, I do know. A bunch of people decided to not obey the rules, and we had a bit of a snafu with some hotel quarantines.
Oh, security guards, am I right?
And now we're a little bit stuffed. So,
well, here I was just walking on the street, which I don't normally do. I had to go out to something, and I parked a few streets away. And people are just out. The cafes were full. The shops are busy with people. It's like nothing has ever happened. So,
but you're good for cases right now, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the right way to go. We've essentially had no cases for 2 months. The only cases that have been here, there's been like maybe 8 in that time, and they're all from interstate. So.
Well, and here's the thing. I drove to my day job office today, and on the way home, I was driving by a park, and there was like, I don't know, 200 people in the park. It's like, what are you doing? Like, we're in stage 3 lockdown. There's rumors that we're going to go into stage 4 lockdown, which becomes like New Zealand style. Like,
you can't drive to work then, right?
You can't do anything. Like, you literally can't do anything. So I just don't understand how people are so complacent. But
I'll tell you what you can do in stage 4: play video games, and that is one thing we know of.
I feel like I've been doing more talking about video games than playing about video games, but
well, you played quite a few recently, but also talked about quite a few.
Yeah, we should just get into it then. I'm going to make you go first though, because you have reviewed our latest title, which is Paper Mario: The Origami King.
Yes, well, the first game I've reviewed in a long time, actually. And pretty much to summarize, if anyone has read the review, my point is, and I got a bit caught on this, and I said it too many times, my point was, when this series launched, which was now 20 years ago, it was very much a Mario RPG. And in each increasing game after the GameCube game, which was Thousand Year Door, they've decided to be less and less role-playing and more action-adventure. And there was a bit of a platformy era in there somewhere on Wii. And now they've pretty much decided this is an action-adventure game. It's nailed the adventure. The world's great. It feels good. The vibe of the place is amazing. It looks really good. It's actually funny, which is strange for a Nintendo game. I actually laughed at some things. It's a bit dad jokey, but it's funny. It doesn't take itself too seriously. But then the other side of the action adventure, the action is terrible. Like, it doesn't fit at all. It's really slow-based, turn-based combat. So it's kind of like, we want to be this fast-moving action-adventure game, but we're keeping this RPG battle system, and it doesn't fit at all. And I don't know what they're trying to do. It's like if you were playing Zelda and every 2 minutes you hit an enemy and you have to stop. It really disrupts the flow of it. So it's a weird game where it actively encourages you to not engage combat because you don't get a reward. All you get is coins and confetti. Confetti is used to kind of fill in some holes around the map, and for that you get more coins. And then coins are used to buy items for battles. So if you just avoid battles, that's it. You don't get any experience. You don't get anything worthwhile. So, it's just, I don't understand what they're trying to do. It's like someone said, let's design the game like this, and someone else did the combat, and they just haven't meshed. But the world is great, so I think it's still worth playing. You just play it and try to avoid combat at all costs when you don't have to engage in it. That's what I'd say.
It sounds like if Final Fantasy VII Remake was just like straight up Final Fantasy VII again, and Square wouldn't have taken on board the modern improvements or advancements in video games as of 2020.
Similar. But yeah,
every time we have to put out a guide saying how to turn off motion controls in a Nintendo game, it's
mm,
like if we had a nickel for every time that happened, Ben, we'd be rich.
yeah. The good news is you don't need to use the motion controls, but it does make it feel like you'll have to. So just to move Mario's gigantic arms when he folds them up. So it's one of the main mechanics, and you do not need to use the motion controls as the game would have you believe.
So are you going back to turnip harvesting?
No, I'm done with turnips. I don't know what we're going to get from Nintendo because now this game is out as of, well, tomorrow at time of recording. We don't have any release dates for any of their games. We don't even know if anything's coming out this year. And something will be, of course, but it's just, I don't remember the time we had a platform holder, a first party, just had nothing on the horizon. Well, I do remember actually the last time was during the end of the Wii U. So it's strange.
It is weird. Do you think Nintendo will put out something like Breath of the Wild 2
Mm.
in November-ish time to try to combat PS5 and Xbox Series X, or are they smarter to wait until 2021 and just have?
Yeah, I think that probably is a 21 game, but it would be a quick development because they're reusing what they'd already done to make the sequel. But I still think it's not coming out this year. The rumors are the 35th anniversary of Mario is their focus, so they're just going to do like a Mario All Stars, which was a SNES game which had the original NES games on it. The new version would be like the like Mario 64 and probably Galaxy and something else to kind of round out a 3D All Stars. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. It sounds like a classic Nintendo rumor that would never happen. Uh, but it could explain how they're plugging a year. Like it would be an easy game to make now. They just have to basically remaster a couple of old games. So yeah, maybe that's it.
Well, there you go.
Hmm.
I guess I will keep going with this trend of reviews. I reviewed Ghost of Tsushima, which is not Tushima, Tsushima,
Okay, I'm going to say
which
Tsushima.
well, Tsushima. It's Assassin's Creed Samurai, basically, but not newer Assassin's Creeds. It's more like the Assassin's Creed of the 2013, 2014 era. So that's like Brotherhood, etc. So it's still maybe the
Not
Ezio
earlier than
years.
that. That's like Unity 2014
Yeah, I said 2013 or 2014.
or
Anyway, it's
13.
like that kind of thing where it's definitely not RPG like, and it's still the kind of traditional air quotes style of gameplay. And Sucker Punch literally just did a one-to-one copy, even down to flaws. So there's like so many millions of missions where you're basically just like expositioning. So you're just following a character, either walking behind them as they explain to you like the entire history of the world, or you're on a horse where they do that. And then if there's 2 or 10 people on a horse, it's creepy for a game that looks ridiculously gorgeous and is like probably in my mind the best looking PS4 game we will
Oh,
have.
really?
It's so
Hmm.
it's so
It's a
pretty, and
big call.
it's mostly because it's like pretty Japan. There's snow. You go and there's like blossoms, and it's all just like the same color of a flower or a tree or a plant with like petals falling. It's very pretty. But for something that's like so pretty and trying to be so realistic, like if you're riding in 2+ people on a horse, they all literally get off their horse at exactly the same time using exactly the same animation. And for something so realistic and pretty, for something like video gamey like that to happen, it like completely breaks your brain. Um, and the checkpoint system of like the wind trying to guide you somewhere does exactly the same thing. It like looks really pretty, but sometimes it doesn't work because it's trying to be pretty rather than work. And then sometimes they'll throw up like an orange like traditional game quest marker on the screen, but it's kind of sporadic in how that happens, so you get used to it happening and then it doesn't, and then you don't know what you're supposed to do. Like it's pretty weird like that. It's a whole bunch of stuff thrown into one game by a developer who does like Infamous, which is similar-ish, but like Sly Cooper as well. So it's the same kind of thing to me, like Horizon Zero Dawn is and will be. And like the original Assassin's Creed was. It's like a really good proof of concept that was too broad and needs to be kind of reworked and defined to be something really, really good in subsequent sequels, which will definitely happen. The protagonist is just like a wet noodle. He is a samurai, and you're supposed to be living this like samurai fantasy through him, but like immediately he ditches the samurai thing to become basically like an assassin, and that's completely against the samurai code. So he's like supposed to be wishy-washy. Which side does he take? But like he just like stabs people in the back and like slits throats immediately. So like he's not he's not a samurai. He's the ghost. It's like it's a whole bunch of cool ideas that ultimately is good, but it's not like I need to tell my friends about this. Apart from like it's really really pretty in my mind.
Well, I'm not going to play it, but I will play the sequel because what I'm picturing is Assassin's Creed 1. So as you say, proof of concept and play the next one. I don't remember if Assassin's Creed was that considered good looking at the time. Like, did people think, wow?
I think so.
Probably.
It's like Assassin's Creed 1, but with like an Assassin's Creed Unity level of question marks on the map as well.
Oh, God.
So,
right. I'm not playing it.
It'll take you like, I think the campaign took me about 20-25 hours to do, like, and I flew through it. I did not care anymore. And I didn't do any of the side quests, but there are so many side quests. It'll easily take you double the time it took me to finish.
Okay.
Have you had any opportunities to play Rocket Arena? That was a really bad way to phrase that question, but deal with it.
Well, I have played the tutorial and the first battle against bots you need to do. And after that, I don't think I haven't really tried, but is it even possible to get a game?
It is now because it's out.
But still, can I play with Australians? Because I've seen a lot of people tweeting saying if you don't play with the local players, then it's just unplayable.
I think that's more of a PC criticism than an Xbox one. I've been playing on Xbox. I have every achievement for winning a game with each character. So I've played a bunch. I feel like I had a bit of an advantage.
Give me the elevator pitch then. What is this game?
All right, it's it's a 3v3 shooter where there's no death. You only can like Smash Brothers kind of knock someone off a map, and the only weapon you have is a rocket of some form. So it's a hero shooter where rockets are the weapon, but you know there's different variations on the theme, and basically each hit you land on someone will increase a visible meter that will stagger them eventually, and if you hit them when they're staggered, they will fly off the map and you get a point. So there's like a deathmatch mode where you're just trying to gain points by kicking people off the map. There's like a capture the flag-esque mode. And then there's this weird mode where you're supposed to guard a treasure chest, but eventually the treasure chest disappears and coins just like spawn on the map, and then you just try to gather as many coins as you can. It's weird. It's very cartoonish in style, like Fortnite-y looking cartoonish. And the music's very cartoonish. That coin mode like literally just rips off a Super Mario theme when the coins appear. It seems geared towards children in my mind, but it's not free to play. So I don't know how children are going to play this because there's like a $40 Australian cost of entry. And it's literally just a free-to-play game that they've said, oh, it's premium, and they've slapped some money on it. But then in like EA style, because it's an EA original, they want you to buy a battle pass, they want you to buy cosmetics, so they're just trying to like double and triple dip. I just don't understand how it's going to succeed. Like it's not unfun. If it was free, it'd be fun, but it's not free. So bleh.
I think, and I may have been judging this too soon, but I think this game's already failed. I don't see how. I only played it for 10 minutes. But it was the most free-to-play feeling game I've ever played. Like even more than your Apex, which is a very clear free-to-play. You can see how they suck you in and then they try and sell you cosmetics. You can see the formula if you look for it in those type of games. And it's here as well. So I
enjoy Apex and I've never spent a cent on it because you don't have to. I think I bought a character because I wanted to. But yeah, Apex is a great example of a free-to-play game. Fortnite's a great example of a free-to-play game that also has the same kind of animation style. But then we also have like Hyperscape got announced by Ubisoft, and that's in like a beta or a trial right now. That's another free-to-play game. Why would you ever go to Rocket Arena for $40 if you have this inundation of free-to-play shooters that scratch the same itch, if not more?
The only game I can think that's comparable is Bleeding Edge. It's similar in that it has a price as well, and it also feels very free-to-play. But one, I don't think it's doing that well anymore a couple of months after launch. And two, it's in Game Pass. So all of these Xbox players had access to it without having to pay, even though it wasn't a free-to-play game. So I don't think EA Access has that same level of subscriber base. And I think it's flopped already. That's why I haven't really bothered playing it. I don't think it's going to be around in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I tend to agree, which is a shame because the head of the studio is, oh God, I've forgotten his name, Kevin Anderson, who used to be a dev on Halo multiplayer, and he's been to Australia a couple times. I think the first time I met him was at the first EB Expo, like out in a shed in Queensland somewhere. But he's like the nicest guy, and they have all this passion. The thing that's weird about it is the game was first announced in partnership with Nexon. So the developer's called First Strike. And then Nexon and First Strike parted ways because they had a disagreement on how to kind of continue the game. And I have no idea if this is correct, but I just feel like First Strike wanted to make it a paid game, and EA is down for that in my mind. And Nexon was like, this isn't gonna cut. This is free to play. What are you doing? And I feel like I don't know if this is true, but I feel like that's why it shifted, and it makes sense to me.
Write the story and then publish it, and I guarantee you someone will come up saying, yep, this is it, this is what happened. That's definitely it.
Probably. How versed are you on this past week's biggest event, the Ubisoft Forward live stream?
Look, I'm all over it. I watched it half-heartedly, but I got the gist. I've seen all these games before. Far Cry was leaked. That was the only big announcement that we didn't know about already.
That we did know about, but didn't know about. But yeah, I get
you know what I mean. That Ubisoft hadn't told us about, except PlayStation. Was it Hong Kong? PlayStation somewhere told us.
Oh yeah, it was Hong Kong.
So we did know all about that. So I mean, that was cool. It looks. What I would say about all of these games is it's all very Ubisoft, isn't it? So yeah, prepare yourself. I don't think I have time. Looking at these three games together, I just kind of think I do not have time for these three gigantic open worlds. I'm going to have to pick one.
Well, they come out in October, November, and February, so you do have a bit of spacing between them.
Not that much, really.
But it's also at the same point as like new consoles and stuff, so I get it.
Yeah, so in my order, I mean, there are three franchises which I like all of. And I previously probably would have had Watch Dogs at the bottom. But that's the only one of the three which I played, which also tells you how old this game is because I played it at E3 last year and it was meant to be out by now.
Yeah.
So they've been working on it a lot more. And I really enjoyed it to the point where Watch Dogs 1, it was okay. It was a classic Assassin's Creed 1, proof of concept. And then I never got into Watch Dogs 2. But having played Legion at E3, I went and played Watch Dogs 2 when I got back and loved it, thought it was really enjoyable. And this kind of takes that to that next level. They just reiterated what they showed last year. I don't think they really showed much new, just how you can play as anyone rather than specific characters. So yeah, I think it looks good.
So I think the biggest difference that I understand in Legion is that they've seemed to kind of rework how the play as everyone system works. So it seemed to just be, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you've played it and I've watched you play it and I've watched Joe play it. I've not touched it. The newest build of this game had kind of like, what do I want to call them? Like archetypes, I guess is what I want to say. Like a construction worker or a spy or a bartender or something else, a street artist. Like they seem to kind of, you can play as anyone, but it seems like people are kind of like lumped into molds, for lack of a better description, that kind of like you get an idea of like kind of looking at them and then profiling them like, okay, this guy's probably going to be good because he's got a wrench and I can melee with it, and he is a construction worker, so I can use a drone to like fly above stuff. Like, is that what you were experiencing? Were people more like fluid?
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think when we played it last time, I'd have to reread what I wrote then. But I think because they'd just shown it for the first time, they showed like, here's the grandma, here's the construction worker, and it didn't kind of click on that these are archetypes as much as they're individual characters, because that's just them first presenting it. But now that we've seen more gameplay and more different missions, you kind of get that feel that these are archetype characters, which makes sense because there has to be some way that they draw them, especially since there is an option to turn off permadeath, but the idea is that you leave it on. Once someone dies, that's it, you can never get them back, so you have to get someone else to replace them. So at some point you need a new construction worker because there's probably a mission designed for him to play.
Yeah. Or like they were saying, like you could find a construction worker with a better set of sub skills and things that suit you better than the one that you currently have. So you just kind of dismiss him if you wanted to,
Mm.
which sounds cool. So Joe Gilroy of The Gap previewed it. He also, nope, that's all I did. I did the rest. I talked to Sean Crooks, who, if you listened to the last podcast, Ben, you would have learned quite a bit about Watch Dogs Legion from, but that's fine. You do
I
you.
already know everything except except when it's coming out. When is that? November, October,
October,
October.
I had the date up and I've totally forgotten it already. October the nope, because that's Job's write up and he didn't put at the end. I am gonna stall for time like a professional. 29th of October is the answer to that
There we
question.
go. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I think this is up there for me. I think it looks good. I do think probably it would be one of those games where when they first announce it, it looks really cool, it looks pretty ambitious, and then the final game will tail back some of that stuff just to make it work. So the archetypes is probably one example. I think there might be a few others, but you know what you're getting with Watch Dogs now, so I think it will fit that pretty well.
Yeah, well, here's hoping. It looks really cool. The next one that we should talk about. There we go. I can use words. Is Assassin's Creed Valhalla, another game that we've seen a bit
Mm.
of. Actually, it seems like we were promised more than what we've seen to date, but this was a proper. We had a hands-on with it for like 3 hours. We've seen a bunch of Valhalla, which is good. So, like Joe did a bunch of stuff on combat. Um, I got to look at his gameplay capture, so I made a video. It was like 10 minutes on like conversations because that is what I liked the most about Origins and Odyssey. So the cool thing, I guess, that needs to be said straight away because it makes everything else make more sense, is that you can switch between a male or female version of Ivor, I don't know how to say it, at any time that you want. So um, it makes sense from, I guess, from a gameplay perspective because you're kind of living the history of someone or some period. So like it may be unclear if this person was a male or a female. So you can kind of just like, oh, I heard Ivor was a male and did this, or I heard he was a girl. He would be a girl. You know what I mean?
Well,
And
that's
did
pretty
this and that and
cool.
the other. So, and that's like, it opens up romances. Like you can romance anybody. And obviously, like if the guy is a male and you're romancing as a female, like in that instance, you're a heterosexual. If you want to do it as a homosexual, like you can, like it's, you just bounce back and forth between, which is cool. And I guess the newest bit of conversations, which is neat, is something called flighting, which Job called Viking rap battles. And it's basically just that, like it's two people squaring off trying to like out rhyme one another. It's like you're in 8 Mile, but you're not Eminem. So it all looks really cool. It seems to be more of a re-steering, for lack of a better description, back towards more of the Origins style of play, but with
Mm.
some Odyssey sensibility. And you get like dual wielding of shields or weapons. It looks pretty good to me. I don't know. Have you had a chance to take a better
Yeah,
look at
I've
it?
I've seen some gameplay. I like that it deals slightly more towards Origins because I loved Origins. It's probably close to my favorite Assassin's Creed game. Odyssey, I didn't dislike, but it just lost me. There was just too much going on, and I got the classic Ubisoft map bloat going on, so I have no idea where to go, and I just can't get back into it. But Origins was great, so yeah, I like that. I did think looking at it, they singled out like stealth as something that's kind of coming back. I think we kind of lost that to a degree, only because obviously a Viking is not welcome in England at that time. Um, so you kind of have to be stealthy and kind of move around the city a lot more covert than we had in previous Assassin's Creed, especially the last two. So yeah, it does have that feeling of bringing back some of those elements which have not been lost, but have just been kind of rested for a little bit.
Nice. We had an interview with Valhalla, and there's some good bits that we put up on the website, but it was one of those ones where the other two interviews with Ubisoft Toronto, who are leading Far Cry and who are doing quite a bit with Legion. The interview we had with Valhalla was Ubi Singapore, and they basically just do the naval stuff. So any questions I had outside of sailing weren't answered amazingly well. So
Hmm.
we didn't put up that interview in the recording form anyway. But we did get some bits and bobs, like the ability to switch between male and female and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of cool.
Well, it wouldn't be an Assassin's Creed game without sailing.
Well, exactly. Far Cry 6 was the surprise that was not a surprise by the end. It's still really cool, I think. You'll play in the fictional island country of Yara. And this is a couple of firsts, I guess, for Far Cry. It's the first time you're going to play in a map that has an actual urban center. There is a capital city in Yara called Esperanza, where the villain, uh, Giancarlo Esposito or Anton Castillo, is holed up. And it's the first time that Ubisoft Toronto is taking the lead on a game, which is pretty cool for them. It's usually like Montreal, I think. Dan Hay is with Montreal, and he's the executive producer on Far Cry. It looks pretty cool. The big kind of opening sequence is meant to look like the likes of an opening of something like True Detective, quite literally, because the person who did the opening sequence for True Detective did the opening sequence for Far Cry 6. So it's very stylized, and you're basically playing as Danny Rogue. I don't know how to say his last name with the right pronunciation. Sorry. He or she, because you can pick a gender, is a native to the country and in the middle of fighting a revolution with a guerrilla front against this dictator in the form of Breaking Bad's Esposito. What have I missed, Ben?
You got everything. That's pretty much what we saw. So Gus Fring is his character in Breaking Bad. That's probably what he'd be best known for. Yeah, it's pretty cool get. I think the villain makes Far Cry, so we know that. Yeah, I would like to see some more variety. Far Cry 3, 4, 5 are all great games, but they pretty much followed the exact same liberate the outpost, do a mission which is somewhat related to doing that, and do it again game plan. Clear your map, get the towers, and it would just be good if we could just have a little more variety, something else going on in there to just change it up a little bit.
Yeah. The protagonist, I guess, because there's a bit of a change, but you're totally right. In the last couple of games, you've played as either like an American tourist who comes into this land and has no idea of what is going on, or in Four's case, you were a native but you left and then you've come back years later. So we did talk to Navid Kavari, who's the narrative director, on those types of changes. Obviously, Ubisoft can't just rely on you being an outsider and then just get to sit down and explain to you all these things that you don't know because you're not from this place. Like, you are an inhabitant of this country. So we talked about how that kind of changes, which is decent. There's a son. Anton Castillo has a son called Diego, who some people think is Voss from Far Cry 3. I'm not sure if that makes sense. They have like a cut above their eyebrow in common, but
Possible
like whatever.
reach.
Maybe. And it seems like that young child who the dictator is trying to basically bring up in his own image to take over when he dies, has more of an internal conflict about how the dictator thinks he should act and how the people are being treated. So that's hopefully an angle that they play up, because it seems quite interesting. And then they're bringing back the Fangs for Hire system, which was the system introduced in Far Cry 5, where you could, gain an animal companion. And the Fang for Hire, or Amigo in this case in Far Cry 6, that they've shown off is a sausage dog named Chorizo, and he is a little sausage dog that doesn't seem to have use of his back legs, so he's one of those little teeny sausage dogs on one of those kind of like
Little
back
sausage
half
dog wheelchair
wheelchair
thing. Yeah.
contraptions. Yeah, so he's adorable, and Navid said he kills people with kindness, so I'm really quite keen to see what that entails, to be honest.
Well, yeah, it looks good. I just want some variety because I really liked the last games. I liked Primal a lot too, but when it came to New Dawn, I started it and I just thought, I can't do this again. So it was just too soon. That had only come out quite recently after 5 to kind of continue that story. So,
well, all these Ubisoft games, like Watch Dogs, not so much, because I kind of just bounced off them pretty quickly, to be honest. But Assassin's Creed and Far Cry, they're kind of my like Christmas holiday period kind of games where I can just kind of like jump in and spend a whole bunch of time over a week or two just to clear through the map. Like I can't jump in and jump out and jump back in. It just doesn't
No,
kind
it's
of
not
work for me.
possible. Yeah.
So I think that's more just the Ubisoft open world 8 million things on the map type dealy.
Hmm. Well, they look good. I'll play them all at some point. It's just a matter of slotting them in. I think they probably have gone 3 big open world games too close together for the average person. If you spend 6 weeks playing one of these, that's it. You're not playing the other ones, I'd say. So maybe touch close together. And what I want to know is, where was Splinter Cell? What are you doing, Ubisoft?
It's in that weird mobile battle royale game
Oh,
that
come
they
on.
announced at last E3. Yeah, yeah.
And the first Ubisoft, I'm going to say E3, but it's not E3, just presentation in the middle of the year without Just Dance at all.
Oh my God, you're right.
I thought they were going to like zoom it and just have the dancers by themselves at home, but nothing.
Well, there is a second Ubisoft forward announced. There's not a date yet, so hopefully Just Dance is like the pinnacle of that presentation.
Yeah, what are they? Yeah, it's missing.
And of course, they announced their first battle royale, which is Hyperscape, which you, if you had any interest in, would be playing right now because there is a beta which Australians have access to. We didn't have access to the first technical test, so have at it. Job, who did a lot of our Ubisoft stuff, has had a lot of difficulty in same kind of thing with, I guess, Rocket Arena, trying to get a game with decent Australian ping on like localized servers. But Ubisoft said, I think a day or two ago, it's 16th of July, when we're recording this, that they'd improved that. I haven't had a chance to jump in. I've been very busy, very sleepy.
Indeed, but that's it. There's no more releases for at least a few weeks, I think. I think we've got
Correct.
them all covered.
And we have a
Yeah.
little bit, like a week and a half or so, until I guess the next big video game thing, which is Microsoft's first party showcase. We're looking at things like Halo Infinite for sure. I know of an announcement that's going up tonight at 11:30 that I can't talk about yet, but I'll tell you later, Ben.
Ooh, I
But
look forward
it's
to that.
stuff we expect. It's not a video game. It's more like a service thing. What do you expect from Microsoft from this event that's about to take place?
This is where they win or lose. Well, not necessarily win the generation, but they get on side or they lose people now. So
Yeah.
they've done a great job. Prior to the PS5 reveal, they were in the box seat, and then Sony just kind of put all their stuff down, in one go, as opposed to Microsoft, who were kind of drip feeding information. And so then Xbox has gone back to just kind of pushing out some technical stuff. They went very spec heavy in a press release this week.
Oh, that was so weird.
About how, I don't even know what it was about. So
all the stuff we've heard before about like velocity architecture and who cares?
And I would say we're pretty much at the forefront of this stuff, and we don't care about it. So the average player is not interested in that. So the time is now for Microsoft to, one, show they've got some great looking games. Two, show they're a bit different. Can't just have the same Forza, the same Halo, the same Gears of War. They need, if those games are there, they need to look different, show a point of difference, as God of War did for Sony, for example. And then we need to see, we're probably going to see some revivals of some old franchises. We're probably going to get a Fable, maybe a Perfect Dark, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to see a couple of new things. So they need to show us quite a lot. They'll probably use, they just announced a date for Flight Simulator, so they'll probably use that, I think, as their Forza, look how amazing it looks on Xbox One, Series X, because I don't think we're getting a Forza Motorsport 8 at launch, as we
feel
normally
like
would.
they're pushing Dirt 5, and it seems weird to push Dirt 5 at launch and a Forza game. So I think you're right.
Yeah, so they normally use Forza as basically their technical demo to show, look how great this console looks. I think they might use Flight Simulator instead, because they've only announced the PC release. Obviously, they have Halo, but Halo is a different beast for that type of thing. That's more gameplay focused. And yeah, I'm really not sure. They have 15 studios now, Microsoft does, and we don't know what a lot of them are doing. So the initiative in particular has been working on a game for a few years, but I think they've said it won't be at this event. They've already ruled it out, which is odd, because this is a studio that was created, I think, in 2017 or 18.
Yeah, and that's
the
one
no
that we
idea what
think
they're
that
doing.
the Perfect Dark, if it's happening, the Perfect Dark reboot's coming from them, which I hope not, to be honest. I want to see something new from them. But
yeah, I don't actually recall if that was a confirmed, they said it wouldn't be there, or if someone had just kind of leaked or rumored that they weren't going to be there, but it sounds like they might not be.
yeah, Double Fine I know is confirmed, and Double Fine to me is, everyone seems to love Double Fine games, and I've not really been
Mm.
super enamored with any of them. Like maybe Psychonauts is probably the closest to
Well,
something I liked.
that's the main thing they're working on, right? Is Psychonauts 2. So
Yeah,
they would have something else as well.
you'd hope.
Yeah, we may even get a new acquisition. So I don't know. They haven't announced one for a long time. I don't know if they're set on 15 studios. There was that rumor last week that Microsoft is interested in buying the WB suite. So Warner Bros. Is potentially trying to. I think Viacom or someone owns them, and they're just trying to get rid of that.
Time Warner,
Warner,
AT&T.
whoever it is, someone owns them, and they're trying to get rid of their game side of the business. And I think Activision and EA, those types have perked up, and so has Xbox. I think it would be a good fit because you'd get developers like Rocksteady, which would be a pretty strong acquisition for Microsoft. They wouldn't get the DC license, so they don't get Batman with it, but they could negotiate a deal for it. So I would
Yeah.
imagine they'd be in the box seat to get that if they wanted it.
Well, and they'd have to at least for okay, theoretically, if they do acquire these WB studios, they'll have to get the licensing for the Court of Owls Batman game that's theoretically in development. They'd have to get the license for Suicide Squad, which is also in development. Theoretically, they'd have to get a license for Harry Potter because theoretically there's an RPG coming. So they could do that. I think I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but the amount that they think the studios are going to sell for, NetherRealm's Mortal Kombat, if they release a new game, would basically recoup that cost. So it's kind of a no-brainer. But I feel like because there are people like Take-Two, Microsoft, Activision, EA all going for this, it's not going to be as cheap an acquisition as people seem to think. Because I feel like they're going to try to outbid each other based on Mortal Kombat alone, let alone Rocksteady. There's some really good WB studios. There's Monolith, who did the Shadow of Mordor games with the Nemesis system, which I think is stupid. I think it's completely overrated. But Microsoft would then own the Nemesis system and could incorporate it into things like a Halo or whatever else. So there's all these different applications that would be beneficial to anyone, really. And I just hope it's not EA or Activision, if I'm speaking candidly, or even Take-Two, to be honest, that take
I
on
think Xbox probably is in the box seat if they want it. They have the most money to do it. They have the most to benefit from it. If you look at their suite of studios at the moment, what they're missing is that that Sony Santa Monica, that Naughty Dog, that action adventure kind of openish world, but kind of linear world developer, which Rocksteady could play that role. A bunch of them could really. So it would fit in really well. I think, to go back what you're saying about the licenses, they probably would go for the DC stuff initially just to counter the fact that PlayStation have got Spider-Man sewn up, and that is a big franchise for them.
Yeah.
If they came out with a next-gen Batman, which was only on Xbox, that would at least, it would have a kind of a weird console war, but it would give them something back. I think
to think if Microsoft decided to go, because Street Fighter is only PlayStation and PC with Street Fighter 5.
So smart.
Imagine if Microsoft said, you know what, if you want Mortal Kombat, you got to come to PC or Xbox.
I think Microsoft, especially under Phil, have been we're not going to get involved in that. They let go of the Call of Duty exclusivity. They've put some of their own stuff, like they've left Minecraft and other platforms. That was already theirs. That's a bit different. But they put something like Super Lucky's Tale is on Switch, stuff like that. So I think he probably does need to go back the other way, because Sony have jumped on that and said, we're going to get exclusive third-party deals then because you're not. So I think they do have to get more involved. But probably they could say, you know what, we're not that interested in Harry Potter, so our studio will release this game, but we're going to let that be on other platforms because we don't want to pay for the exclusive rights to it. So yeah, they could go both ways.
Yeah, well, and I'm all for the kinder, gentler side of gaming. So it's good PR to be like, you've always you bought Mortal Kombat on your SNES, and then you've evolved to Xbox 360 and Wii U and PS3, and now we're not going to limit you. So if you want to play Mortal Kombat 12, it's on any platform you want, even Stadia. No one even cares about Stadia, but it's on Stadia. There's points in that too. So
there are, to a degree. I think they have been doing that, but there comes a time where that's that good sportsmanship gets overridden by you need to also try and win for your team. So
yeah.
I think he's done a good job with it generally. It wouldn't surprise me if they said Mortal Kombat's coming out on Switch and Xbox and PC.
But the other thing to that, of course, is because if we're talking in hypotheticals, and this is a first party studio, yeah, you can buy it on Switch, you can buy it on PS4. Don't forget though that this is an Xbox Game Pass day one release, so you don't need to buy it if you want to play it on Xbox or if you want to play it
Yeah.
on PC.
But we're getting well ahead of ourselves because
Way
this,
ahead of
if it
ourselves.
happens, is not going to be at the event next week. But they could announce a new studio potentially. But yeah, probably not. I just want them to have some stuff which is genuinely surprising, stuff that looks good, some new ideas, and probably some revivals of some stuff which is lay there. So
Yeah,
they've got heaps of stuff they can bring back if they want to.
no ID at Xbox, no
Mm.
tech stuff. I just want to see games, 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 games. Do you, before, because we're running way over. Do you want this to be like a Sony style affair where they like tease a game that you're not going to see for like 6 years, or do you want it to be here are things that in the next year, 2 years, you're going to be able to actually play? What do you prefer?
Uh, Xbox normally does the next year only, really. So I wouldn't mind if they went up to 2 years. I don't want them to do a Final Fantasy VII reveal where that was announced 5 years out and we still haven't got the whole game. They gave us the first little bit 5 years later. So I don't want that necessarily. But yeah, they may have to go a little further than they normally do just to win us over because everyone else does that. So they're going to have to kind of pad it out. What I do want from Sony style is to kind of have that game. I don't want to have here's some awkward banter. We're going to make a joke about pizza. We're going to have like, by all means, have the developers come in and say something, but limit it to like 20 seconds, Don't have them chat to each other. Just kind of have them in being like, hi, I'm Guy from studio and here's what I want to show you. And that's it. Uh, that's the way everyone else is going at the moment and it works really well. So that's what I want to see.
Nice. All right, I think we're done because we've talked too long.
That's it for us.
Really, how do we find you on the internet?
I
And
am Ben_Salter on Twitter, and I was not blocked today because I don't have a blue tweet, so I could tweet all day.
neither did I. I'm SWrightAU, and you can only find me on the internet because, unlike Ben, who can go outside, I really can't. And it might get even
Hmm.
worse in the next couple of weeks. So hey, whatever.
Well, good luck with that. We're all cheering for you, but don't come too close. No closer than that.
Well, we'll be fine. Stay safe. That being said, and being serious, stay safe. Do the right thing, guys. If you're in Victoria, especially, don't go out if you don't have to. Wear a mask if you have to, and just be smart. Play video games. Play video games and tell me about it because I'm living vicariously through you.